Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Hipsters Chronicles. This is your host, Jamil Hassan, the Crypto Hipster, where from the period of time of March 2021 through June 2022, I interviewed 182 founders, executives, entrepreneurs, artists, and authors from over 50 different countries and built a global audience in 165 countries while posting and producing my podcast at the Irish Tech News platform. Since then, I realized there's a lot of incredible content in the interviews that I had, and my interviews with Thought Leadership podcast interviews that had amazing gems from all the guests that I was able to interview. And so I've chosen and decided to create the Crypto Hipsters Chronicles series, which is a series of the gems, the little tiny pieces from each of the interviews that I had in the areas of Bitcoin, Ethereum, metaverses, NFTs, regulatory issues in crypto globally, art, and you name it across the wide spectrum of different verticals in blockchain and crypto industry, and in fintech and mobility and sustainability as well. These are about 15 minutes long, each chronicle, and has three, four, or five different segments from different interviews. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope you have learned a lot. And if you'd like to um, listen to the full podcasts, they are available online at both the Irish Tech News and on Anchor. And in a future date will be available on the Crypto Hipsters station as well. So please enjoy and talk to you soon. Welcome to Crypto Hipsters Chronicles, episode 36. Starting from zero, how to build a powerful personal blueprint for success. This episode of the Chronicles is a compilation of four segments of four interviews I conducted with founders and thought leaders globally. First is with Ryan Williams, who is the executive director of the Blockchain Academy. Second is Sunny Vu, who is the CEO of Arrivo. Third, Dr. Lehman Baird, who at the time was the founder of the Hedera hash graph and is now the founder and co-CEO of Swirl World. And fourth is Cyrus Tagahishian, who is the founder and CEO of ShopX. Enjoy. An additional thing to be brought up to speed, is you focus on is creating industry credibility, which is very important, right? I don't feel that we're there yet, So I wanted to ask why not, and what needs to happen for us to get there.
Yeah. This is, it's not just our industry. It's newer, and we're hopefully with our leadership and those in the space are seeing these certifications, micro credentials, stackable programs, which is where skills are developed. Um, the credentials and actually verifying an actual skill, as opposed to I took a YouTube video. Somebody can see that you watched a YouTube video. Does that mean you retained the information? You understood it? Did you take any little knowledge check or assessment? And no, you didn't. So I think people need to start labeling themselves based on what they've either accomplished, maybe in an official project. So we're talking to some people about actually verifying projects, because that's a major indication of whether or not you're able to do something, right? Is it out in the marketplace? Can it work? Is there an minimal viable product out there even that you can get verified and say, yes, this individual built this, and they can build something else for you, right? So, but as the individuals go, again, we'll take Linux Foundation or R3 Corda. They already have certifications out there. I can tell you on the language front, the languages that are needed, like Rust or C++ or you name it, as on-ramps to specific blockchains. There isn't a C++ certification that I'm aware of for that language. And I think you're going to start to see a lot more of these, hey, I can pass a language test on the technical front, which is a precursor for maybe developing on near protocol or whatever. So the more we can get these verified skills, that kind of gives a decision tree to those that acquire them. Hey, with this skill, I can then acquire this skill and go on this route towards that objective or that career objective. And so it also helps on the employer side. Right now, nobody knows who the hell can develop in Solidity, but they're willing to pay out the nose for somebody to do it. Now, if there was an official Solidity developer certification, which we actually helped create, we haven't launched it yet because we wanted to do it with with Ethereum Foundation. They won't pick winners, so we need to get consensus. But at the same time, these assessments can be out there, but it's getting enough people to point at it and say, this is a legit assessment, and we all rally around this. What we're doing to help in that space is, because we hadn't seen a certification, and I really need certifications through my college and university partnerships, because I can't necessarily launch programs that will be funded by the Department of Labor or Department of Defense unless there's a verified skill. And so I needed to help launch these certifications. So with the Government Blockchain Association and all of our test banks, we're starting to create a certification body. Government Blockchain Association wants to establish their own certification, which they have. They're going to get it on a blockchain and have it more of a digital badge format. But outside of that, for more technical certifications, say for, I can't again mention who, but a major block, just call it Ethereum, even though it's not. Let's say Ethereum wants to launch a certification. Where is that launch? So we help form the Blockchain Certification Association, or BCA. And so that's kind of a group of people forming this certification body. We've donated a bunch of our test banks for a ton of courses, foundational content, architecture, security, but then it's on different working groups to oversee those certifications and those test banks to say, is this really what we need to assess in order to say this person is qualified for this skill? And if they have to update the test bank and update the benchmark, then it's on the curriculum providers, whether it's me or a college or university that wants to point to that cert, to update their curriculum to align with the certification. The more we can get this down and get the badges on a platform that employers can say, all right, in this radius or this country or this time zone, I want people with these certifications. And then instead of putting a job on Monster or whatever and getting a million junk resumes and maybe one unicorn out of the bunch, now you could say, all right, here's all my unicorns in a stable. I want that one. Because you can see that not only they have this cert, they have 5 other certs that completely are like a warm blanket in terms of your, seeing them as a good fit for your company. So I think more digital we get about these badges, and the more we get them out there and industry recognizes them, the more the workforce kind of streamlining the onboarding process will ease and get better.
There are entrepreneurs out there who are not as financially backed as others, right? And what does starting from zero mean to you? And what words of wisdom can you offer people who are starting from zero and not getting the traction yet, but could?
Well, I will say this. If it's your first startup and your first round of financing, kind of like your seed round for your first company, right? Unfortunately, you either have to be rich, connected, or lucky. And because those 3 factors are, in my humble opinion, limited knowledge base, whatnot, are the dominant factors for success, unfortunately. Now, when I started my first company, I was neither rich nor connected, still kind of not. But for the third, so you kind of have to make your own luck, and so how to get that break. And I think a lot of that is just continuing to push and being very customers oriented, thinking about like what it is that people actually want instead of what you think is cool to make, and I think it's a hard struggle to get out of oneself, and I mean, it's part of why I think people often encourage people to solve problems that they have, that they want to solve for themselves. And that's probably good advice much of the time, but not always, because what if you're an outlier case? You know, like I love flashlights. That's one of my favorite things. That I actually have a large collection. I have way too many, and I have like 40, and some pretty fancy flashlights. I would love to see an amazing 1 million lumen flashlight. It's probably a bad venture idea to pursue, So you have to. There has to be some perspective that one needs to have. But yeah, I would just say one thing though is if you are going to pursue an entrepreneurial journey, I would just keep in mind the one skill that is probably the most important to harness, whether you like it or not, because you're going to end up doing it, and that's sales. That's kind of the only thing that matters, because and it's not just about getting people to give you money for your product. It's, you got to convince the media to talk about you when honestly there's nothing to talk about, or investors to invest in you when they probably shouldn't invest in you because it's super high risk. They're probably going to lose their money with you, not just get their money back. They'll lose their principal. You also got to get partners, convince partners to work with you when they probably shouldn't work with you, because in general I recommend people not partnering with startups, because you want to marry up, right? And you got to convince people to work for you. Leave that cushy job at Google paying however much money per year for a job that has zero job security, and expected value of a career at a startup is probably significantly less than one at Google or whatever company you're at. And so that skill is something you're going to have to do day in, day out, and over time, more and more as you remain active in a company as a founder.
How are they being used, and what are you looking forward to seeing in the area of sports and NFTs?
Oh, yeah. So I said tokens are the other big area, and this NFTs that you're talking about is part of it. Non-fungible tokens, the way of taking something of value in the real world and bringing it into the ledger. And why would you want to do that? Because you get enormous efficiency. It becomes very easy to buy and sell them, to set up complicated rules for how they can be bought and sold, and then those rules are enforced by the ledger itself, to be able to take things and make them liquid that have never even been possible in the past. And Spencer Dinwiddie is a good example of that. His system, Galaxy, the creator's Galaxy, is allowing people who create things to then turn it into a token in the ledger on Hedera, and then be able to monetize it and sell it to people who would want to buy it, but before it just wasn't possible. So it has always been possible to buy tickets to a basketball game. You can do that. That has always been around. But what about being able to easily, say, buy the future earnings of an NBA basketball player? That now is what Spencer Dinwiddie is doing. A creator or an entertainer or a basketball player can monetize their own future earnings, and you can buy a share of that as a token on Hedera. Or even better, how about things like, hey, I'd like to have a half hour of time with that guy. I'd love to have lunch with that person. I really admire them, or I have an idea to present to them. You could do tokenization of that. Creators can tokenize their own time. You can take your own time and put it as a token in Hedera and be able to buy and sell that. Or what if you wanted to be able to use tokens to sell for people to be able to influence and do things like say, hey, which sneakers am I going to wear at my next basketball game while I'm playing? And you can have your fans actually giving you input on that and voting and deciding on what sneakers you wear at your next basketball game. And tokens are being used for that. Other companies are using tokens to track the sneakers themselves. There's a huge collectible market in sneakers. It's really interesting. There's a huge collectible, like people collect stamps and they collect sneakers. Huge collectible market in it. And if you tokenize them, then you can do that. We even have a council member that's involved in tokenizing things, Avery Dennison, and do that kind of thing. And then we have another council member who's really big on tokenizing things, DLA Piper. And so Spencer Dinwiddie is doing this. He's creating this Galaxy to help creators to be able to tokenize with NFTs, non-fungible tokens, tokenize things that in the past just weren't liquid. And he's creating markets for things that people have always wanted. They didn't even know they wanted it in some cases, and just weren't able to get because there was no efficient way to do it. And this is what I find exciting. As the world gets tokenized, which just means as ledgers are able to represent the stuff in the real world, then we're able to do transactions we could never do before in the real world. They would just be too inefficient. He's creating new kinds of markets. I love that.
How can building rather than exiting play a crucial role in creating economic opportunities for the younger generations?
Yeah, I often say this as a startup, your currency of value is not dollars, it's information and learning. And when you're learning and collaborating, you're creating a lot of opportunity and intellectual type of thinking or stimulation for others who are either observing you and or part of what you're looking to become. And when you're building, the mission there is to build something of value, and people come and you teach and you coach, and it's not a competition about who's the smartest to get the biggest paycheck or anything along those lines. It's more of a collective conscious type of movement where everybody's there together trying to build something for a specific purpose. Exit strategies, they promote a little bit of competition, and competition is not bad per se, but there is no guardrails, or at least in the current system today. So people make decisions for the exit and not necessarily for sharing or bringing others. We don't live in a society where companies could work together and come up with something better together, or at least not for the most part. And they're being incentivized to compete with each other and potentially harm each other, which is not good for society in some ways. I can understand that, hey, it also drives innovation, but you could drive innovation different ways. It doesn't have to be throw them to the pit and the greatest would survive. We aren't barbarians anymore, right? There is a level of human consciousness we've got to where we could all collaborate and hold a space of peace for each other, regardless of again, who you are, where you're from, age, or any type of quality you could discriminate against. We're all just a consciousness, and we're all here experiencing something, and just giving that space for us to kind of be ourselves and learn from each other. I think could be the greatest impact for younger generations coming in, and they're not going to be put behind the 8 ball. So again, exit strategies are they're highly leveraged to say the least, and this whole concept of leverage is borrowing against the future generations' time. So as they inherit this this economy or economic situation, they're in debt, it's going in a certain direction, and it's kind of becoming a prison, really. Like, we got to do more just to kind of keep the economy going, keep GDP high. And again, I think those are wrong questions to ask as a society. It's like, hey, are we thriving and succeeding because there a lot of wealth is concentrated into a few percent, or it's we're living in the scarcity mindset, really. And I think that's what exit strategies promote. And we're going to make this simple. And then I feel like if we live in a more of a build mentality, we're more in a abundance mindset, because there's so many different opportunities available of building. There's so many different ways to solve it. And when you're trying to do that vibration off of each other, creates some of a competition, but it's also healthy in a way that we're coming up with different solutions. And look, there might be 2 or 3 solutions that might be great and optimized for different use cases, which was often what I say about what's the best blockchain out there, what's better than Ethereum. I'm like, why can't 2 exist at the same time? One's good for one thing and another one's good for another, and you have choice and option. And so I do feel like we need to give an opportunity for younger generations, and this whole mentality of it's too big to fail, let's bail out all these people. And I'm just like, why? They put themselves in a shithole in the first place. Why would you want to keep on promoting that type of behavior? And it's preventing other younger people, yeah, maybe we're younger, but we get discriminated against all the time too. Yeah, you're just a young kid. You don't know what you're doing. I'm so much older. I mean, that also boils my blood. So I try to create a safe environment for the people I work with, and let's talk about your feelings, your thoughts, and what you want to do, and experiment and fail. And that's another thing that exit strategies don't have any type of buffer for, is failing, right? You got the exit and you did it great and you made us money, or you failed, right? But failing is part of the process. It brings this little bit of this vulnerability, which is humbling, and you fail a couple times, and then you finally get to building a product, and that whole process is so rewarding. I love it, and it goes beyond just making money or anything. It's about the person in itself too, and what they experience and how they shape themselves, for the rest of their lives.